Hi everyone, this is GosuDad along with baby Caleb, and this is a gameplay overview of the classic PC game from 1994, Xcom UFO Defense. So the idea of this movie is to get everyone on the same page with what this old game was like before we head into a blind Let's Play of Xcom Enemy Unknown, the reimagining of this classic PC game. With that being said, let's head into the game and load a saved game that Caleb and I have been playing lately. So Xcom is a game about you being basically the CEO of an anti-alien organization that's funded internationally by nations around the globe. And that gameplay is divided into three different styles of gameplay. There's the geoscape, which is what you see here. There's a base management section of the game, which you see here. And then there's also a battlescape mode where you fight the aliens on the ground. So first off, in the geoscape, you can see that there is a very round Earth here that you can navigate on. You can move it around and whatnot, and you can see that there are lights flashing on the Earth, and there are these little icons moving on the Earth, indicating that this Earth is this virtual Earth is a simulation. It's live and it's running in real time, and you can see that over here with the time clock here, which you can speed up and slow down. So you start off the game by building a base anywhere you want on the globe. And in my case, I've decided to pick Central Europe for my first base. And the placement of that base is important because your base will be the launching area for aircraft interceptors, which you use to shoot down UFOs, and is also the place where you'll establish radar coverage. So each of your bases, you can install radar sites in them, which allow you to detect UFOs that are flying around. Which is, I think, an important aspect of this original XCOM game is that it's a simulation. So right now, just as much as you can see these icons flashing, and this little icon here which represents an airplane moving along, is that there are lots of alien UFOs flying around, hidden to us because we can't see them with our radar. So that's one of the reasons why you see multiple little blue dots around the map, is that I have built several bases with radar installations at each site so I can get a greater radar coverage over the Earth. So whenever these UFOs are detected, you can send out these little interceptor guys to shoot down the UFOs or to track them, and then once they've landed or they've crashed, you can send a troop transport, which is called a Sky Ranger, full of troops to go to the landing site and capture or kill the aliens and take all of their alien stuff to research and manufacture for yourself in your battle with the alien menace. So over here on the right hand side, we can see a funding screen which shows us all the different countries that are located around the globe that we are charged with protecting, and the amount of money that they give us every month, as well as the change from the previous month in their funding. So basically how it works is that as you shoot down alien UFOs and battle them, you get points, and as aliens do missions around the Earth, they get points. And for each different country, they compare the alien points to your points, and depending on who's ahead, they change their funding appropriately. Now, there are several different types of alien missions that you can get, that you can start from this globe. If you shoot down a UFO, there are crash missions from crash sites. If a UFO lands intact, you get a UFO landing mission that you can fight in. The aliens will also attack major cities around the globe, and I'll see if I can zoom in here, and so you can see there are these cities here. So the aliens can attack these cities individually, and those are called terror missions. And in those missions, the aliens are trying to kill as many civilians as possible, and you're trying to stop the aliens from doing that. So if they finish their terror mission, or if you go down and you don't fight them off, then that's buku points for the aliens as far as that funding goes. The other thing that can happen is that the aliens can, if they do enough activity with a country, that country may actually sign an alliance with the aliens because they don't want to be attacked by them anymore. And that opens up the possibility of aliens building bases on Earth that are permanent installations like yours. I think they show up as purple dots instead of blue. So you can attack those alien installations trying to capture commander aliens to get their alien intelligence about their plot. At the end of the game, there are a few missions that are kind of like story missions. They're kind of the gateway missions for the end of the game. But besides that, all the missions that you encounter in the game are randomly generated from the simulation. So that's one of the great things about XCOM, is it's basically a great big simulation sandbox game. So we talked a lot about the geoscape and all the different missions that you can do from this area, but let's get into a big chunk of the gameplay, and that is base management. So you can see here in the upper right hand side that I can have up to 8 different bases, and each base is made up of a 6x6 grid of facilities. So there are facilities to manage your soldiers, and facilities to manage your research, which is done by your scientists, and manufacturing, which is done by your engineers, and to house your aircraft. So you can see here that I have a main base in Europe, which has an interceptor and a Sky Ranger. I have another base over in the United States where I have a Sky Ranger and an interceptor, and then I have another base over in East Asia in China where I have an interceptor. And then I have these 2 bases where all they have are these radar dishes. So that was to try to give me that radar coverage that I mentioned earlier. So for each base, there's a lot of management that you can do. So at the onset, you've got these soldiers that you use to go on your different missions, and so you can see the soldier list here. And each soldier has kind of a miniature RPG stats system. So these are stats that are directly related to the combat missions that you do. And these stats can increase depending on their actions in a mission. So if a soldier shoots his gun or he fires on an enemy's turn, the firing accuracy and reaction stats go up. And soldiers can be assigned individual body armor. The reason why that's important is the aliens have very powerful weapons, and body armor keeps your soldiers alive so they can get higher stats. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that this soldier has kind of a funny name, and that's because you can rename your soldiers in Xcom. And one of the reasons for doing that, like in my case, is so that I can remember what the stats of the soldiers are, because in some of the other screens, like this screen, you only see their name. You don't see, there's no way to see the soldier's stats. Now, as you can see on this side, the soldiers are assigned to aircraft, so we'll get to that next. So the next thing you can manage in your base are the aircraft that's at your base. So you can see that this base has a Sky Ranger and an interceptor, and you can manage their loadouts individually. So the Sky Ranger, you basically assign the troops that are assigned to that Sky Ranger, and then you can assign the equipment that's assigned to the Sky Ranger. So when it lands, this is the equipment that's stored on the ship for each mission. You can also specify which armor is assigned to each soldier. Again, that armor is very important in this game. So you'll notice here that the loadout of your Sky Ranger is based on the Sky Ranger. You don't actually assign guns and grenades to individual soldiers at this point. Now, your interceptors have a very basic weapon loadout system. You can have a couple of weapons, a couple of different types of missiles and stuff like that on each interceptor, and later on you can build your own interceptors from alien technology, and that's pretty cool. So you're managing soldiers, you're managing your aircraft, and you can also add little facilities to your base here. So for example, I've added an extra radar station here, and I've added extra living quarters so I can have more soldiers and scientists and engineers. Speaking of scientists, you use your scientists to research different alien technologies, such as this plasma rifle clip. You can see here that I can allocate these scientists. So the scientists and the engineers are just numbers. There's no names associated with them or anything like that. So you assign your scientists to these research projects, and research projects allow you to learn more about the aliens and their nefarious plans, as well as their technology, which you can use against them. Now, every time you research something, that adds an entry into your UFOpedia. So the UFOpedia is basically a little Wikipedia about Xcom UFO Defense that's within the game. So here you can look at the all the different items that you have at your disposal. So for example, I have these different human weapons, and that these are the weapons that you start out the game with, and you can read their stats about the different types of damage that they can do, as well as those time unit costs. So for example, to do an auto shot with this gun takes 40% of your soldiers' time units. Now the other thing that it does is every time you research an alien technology, for example like a UFO component like these alien alloys, it gives you a little entry giving you kind of like a story description of what these alien artifacts are about. In addition to that, you can also research alien weapons. So if we go here to the artifacts area, we can see that I researched a heavy plasma gun, and it gives you the stats for that. And these weapons and some of these components can be used against the aliens as we go back to the bases menu. Now you can use them against them by capturing them from the missions that we'll talk about later, or by manufacturing them. So at your base you can have a bunch of engineers and use those engineers to use your money and resources to build new things. So for example, I've got these engineers and they're building personal body armor for the soldiers. And that brings us to this transfer thing. So as you'll notice, There's a lot of management going on here, a lot of kind of basically inventory management with the soldiers and the equipment, and these the scientists and the engineers can be transferred between base to base, and that's what this transfer button is for. So I can say, oh, I've got a bunch of soldiers in my European base and I want to send them to the USA base. So you can come over here and say, I want to transfer a Stingray launcher and a couple of missiles, right? And that's basically how you move stuff back and forth, because each of these buttons brings you to a different list. So for example, this is my USA base and they have a different set of soldiers than are at my European base, and then you can start to see why a lot of this older game is just a lot of management here. So the last two buttons are purchasing and selling, which lets you purchase more soldiers and scientists and other earthly types of things. And then the sell button lets you sell everything that's in your inventory, including all the alien artifacts that you've picked up. Now, one of the things about this purchasing and selling and manufacturing triangle that you can have going on here, actually it's not even a triangle because you can also capture alien artifacts from the field, is that there's a whole little economy that's run with inside your base management system. So I mentioned before from the Geoscape that you get funding every month from the different countries that support you around the world. So that's one way to get money, and when I first started playing the game I originally thought that was the only way to get money, but later on I had a friend tell me that there's a whole economy within this manufacturing selling aspect. So for example, you can manufacture something that doesn't cost that costs a certain amount of money to manufacture, but let's see, let's go in here. So for example, if we give ourselves some manufacturing space so that we can manufacture something else, we can say I want to manufacture a laser rifle. That laser rifle is going to cost $20,000, and it'll take some engineering time to make that laser rifle, so we can start that. But that laser rifle costs $20,000, but when we turn around, we can turn around and sell that laser rifle for more than that. So you basically can manufacture things and then sell them for a profit, and that's another way for you to make money. And in fact, at some points in the game, that's a pretty significant part of your income, is this manufacturing and selling, or even just capturing alien artifacts. For example, I've captured 400 units of this Alarium 115, and I can sell that Alarium for 5,000 bucks a pop. But some of these items, for example, I think there's some I have a bunch of corpses here, and this like UFO navigation, you only need so many copies of that for your own manufacturing capabilities. So anything that's extra you can sell for quite a bit of profit. Now, it is kind of a funny story aspect. It's like, where are you selling this stuff? You know, who cares about 50 sectoid corpses besides Xcom? It's a little creepy. But yeah, so that's another aspect of this base management. And that kind of brings us to the end of the space management set. So you can see here that there's a lot of gameplay involved here. The other thing that I should mention as well is that one of the missions that I forgot to mention is that as the aliens get more powerful on Earth, they may actually hunt down and find your bases and attack them. And when they do, you actually have a mission inside this base. So the layout of these facilities does matter, because when the aliens come to attack the base, they enter through this entrance elevator or through the hangars. And so in this case, I've tried to arrange my base such that the entrance elevator and these hangars are all on one side of the base, and I think the soldiers start out, your soldiers start out in the living quarters. So this way I'm trying to reduce the number of choke points that I have to cover with my soldiers should this base come under attack. Now let's go back out to the Geoscape, and we can enter the third gameplay part of Xcom UFO Defense, and that is the battlescape. So you can see here, as I zoom in just a little bit, that we have an alien UFO that has crashed. I shot it down with an interceptor, and we're going to take this Sky Ranger that's full of a couple of troops and send those to this crash site. So we'll go ahead and speed up time so we can get there quickly, and we can begin this mission. So quite a bit of your time in XCOM is going to be in this next mode, which is called the Battlescape. But before we can get to that exciting mode, we are going to be here in the weapon loadout screen. So before you enter any mission in XCOM, if you remember, I talked about that the equipment that's assigned to the Sky Ranger is per Sky Ranger and is not per troop. So when you enter this screen, the computer will have tried to assign different grenades and rifles and such to your troops, but that may not be appropriate for the skills of those troops. So you can see here I have the troop names with their a few of their stats. So the idea is that from the stats I'll be able to decide, oh, he shouldn't have a laser rifle, instead he should have this big plasma gun instead. So we're just going to do just a little bit of inventory management here with these guys. And as you can see, this process of loading up your guys with the appropriate weapons can take a very long time before you're able to get into the action. So that's one disadvantage of having this detailed inventory, this role-playing like inventory per soldier, and this Sky Ranger has 14 soldiers, so that's a lot of inventory to manage. But we're just going to go ahead and get into the battle here. So you can see from this screen that this battle is turn-based, and you take turns making moves with your soldiers making turns and then the aliens making turns. So we'll just move these guys along. So this is the battlescape, the 3D tactical turn-based part of this game. So first I'm going to head over to the map here. So you can see that this battlescape is made up of these different tiles. Here's a tile that has a landed Sky Ranger, these blinking dots are your guys, and then there's these other tiles that are terrain out here. So every map is made up of a 5x5 grid of randomized tiles, depending on the terrain that you landed on in the geoscape. So once again, pointing to the simulation nature of this game. Now, in the RPG style and flavor of this game, each soldier has these things called time units, which allow him to do different actions in the battlescape. So, for example, this soldier is going to throw this grenade, which costs 12 time units, this flare, sorry. And he's going to throw it at the bottom of the ramp to try to give him some vision. Now that's the other thing as well, is that when we landed at this UFO crash site, it was nighttime on the geoscape, because the geoscape actually shows nighttime and daytime. So because we landed here in the evening, it's dark and our soldiers can't see, and the aliens have an advantage because they can see in the dark. So you can see here that as I move this guy around, he's using up these time unit things, and he can use those time units to kneel and look around and change his looking. So you can see as he looks around, he can see more of the map that's revealed in front of him, and he has a limited vision because it's dark. And then we get this message that you'll see a lot, which is not enough time units. So then we'll just cycle through the different soldiers, having them move around and look around for the aliens and try to find them. And here we kind of run into one of the perhaps kind of inadvertent aspects of the XCOM Battlescape game, and that is that each of these maps is randomly generated, and the aliens show up in random parts in the map. And so that means that a lot of these missions will kind of turn into a game of hide and seek as we look to find the aliens. So now you'll notice that this guy stopped a little prematurely from where I clicked on him to go, and he has this little red dot which tells us that there's an alien. And if you see right here, there's a flashing thing there, and that is an alien. So this guy doesn't have enough time units to be able to shoot, and there's a couple of different types of shooting actions that he can take. An aim shot, which uses a lot of units but gives him a higher accuracy, an auto shot that lets him shoot 3 times with a lower amount of time units, or a snapshot that's kind of in the middle. But so you can see here that we played a little game of hide and seek and we found our alien, but that guy doesn't have enough time units to take action, so we pick another person. So you can see how this turn-based battle game is fairly detailed with the movement. You're moving guys one step at a time, and it's kind of this slow process of finding the aliens on the map and killing them. Oh, look, you see she doesn't have enough time units. I don't think she has even enough for a snapshot. Oh, we do. And there we go, and she hits the building. Great. So that is the battlescape, and you can tell that with the subdued kind of scary music, and you taking one step at a time before you find the aliens, and I'm not sure I'm going to get to a point where an alien's actually going to shoot at me and kill me, but you spend a lot of time watching your guys die, and as your guys die, they have morale, and so if you have a person who's got a higher rank and he dies, then your troops can panic in the action in the game, which is pretty scary too. So there's your Battlescape game, and again, these missions are randomized. Somewhere on this map is the alien UFO. Oh, there it is. And there's several different UFO types that can be that you can encounter. And so there's some variety in the missions with the UFO types and the types of aliens that are inside the UFO. So there are some aliens that can take over the mind of your soldiers. There are some aliens that have different weapons and grenades and that type of stuff. And there's even some aliens that can turn your soldier into aliens, which is kind of scary. Yeah, so there's a lot of variety in these randomized maps. And you'll be doing a lot of these maps, so which is why if you look over at the options, I've done certain things to make the game go faster, like I have the Xcom movement speed set to maximum so that I don't spend a lot of time watching my guys move around the map. They just zip over to where they need to go. Now, a couple of things that Caleb and I wanted to add before we leave the Battlescape is that we've loaded another rendition of that exact same mission here, and you can see that there are a different set of tiles. In fact, there's a different even layout of the map where the Sky Ranger has landed. And so here you can see that we've landed in the same farm area on the geoscape, and it's rendered the map with a different set of tiles. So here we have some wheat here instead of I think we had grass there in the previous rendition of this map. But the main thing that Caleb and I wanted to point out here is that if you remember that inventory screen that every soldier had at the beginning of the Battlescape missions, that inventory screen maintains itself inside the Battlescape. So here we are in the middle of a battle, and even within the battle, the soldiers can do things such as drop items onto the ground for other soldiers. So this guy is going to drop this high explosive on the ground for someone else to use, and then he's going to wander off. And if we look, we can see that he's dropped this little item on the ground. And then the next guy in the list, this lady actually, she can come forward, come down to this spot, open up her inventory, and pick up that same high explosive grenade into her hand and use that later to throw that grenade and kill the aliens or something like that. So you can see that that inventory system, you know, it is kind of an RPG-like inventory system that does give you an insane amount of flexibility. So, for example, you can have instances where your soldiers will panic, and when they panic, they may drop all their weapons, they may shoot in random places, they may even accidentally shoot your own soldiers. But I've had cases where someone panicked, they dropped all their weapons, they ran away, and then later on they regained their bravery, and then you gained control of them, but they didn't have any weapons. And so I had other soldiers throw weapons to them that they then picked up to continue fighting. And that's something that those types of little stories are things that the inventory allows you to have. The other thing that's nice about the inventory is that if a soldier dies and he drops his weapon, another soldier can pick it up, or if you once you've researched the alien technologies, you can use the alien weapons, and that includes weapons that you find on the battlefield. So if you shoot and kill this alien and he drops his gun, and you have researched that gun so you know how to use it, your soldiers can come over if they run out of ammunition and pick up and use the guns of the aliens on the aliens inside the mission. So those were the couple of things that maybe Caleb and I wanted to add before we leave the Battlescape. And that is the Battlescape. So once you've killed all the aliens or knocked them out and captured them, then the game ends. Or you can go ahead and leave prematurely like we're going to do now, leaving troops in the landing zone. And then at the end of the mission you get a score, and the score is based on your actions, like how many aliens you killed, how many artifacts you picked up, and how many of your guys died. And as I mentioned earlier in the terror missions, it's going to give you a list of how many civilians that you saved, or how many civilians were killed by aliens, or even civilians killed by your friendly fire. So that score is tallied up at the end of the month compared to all of the other activity that's gone on around the world, and that affects your funding. Bringing us full circle back to the Geoscape. And there you go. Those are the 3 different gameplay modes inside the original XCOM game. You've got the Geoscape with its world simulation. You've got the base management section, which is just a lot of management, but it's kind of like building your own little city. And then you also have the Battlescape, which is your turn-based tactical stuff. Now the other thing that we're going to cover real quick here, if we can, is UFO interception. So we're going to speed up the time here. Oh, there's a UFO. And we're going to center on him and go down to 5 seconds. We're going to click on our Chinese base and send an interceptor to go fight him. And I'll zoom in a little bit and turn up the time, and we can see our little yellow dot hopefully try to catch up to that red one, and we can have ourselves a little air mission. Oh, he's turning around, and we're going to have a fight here. So this is the interception minigame here. And basically you see a UFO, you see your ship, and then you can have these different levels of aggression that you drew to try to shoot the ship, and you can get a little bit of a preview of what the ship looks like. And depending on the level of aggression you have, more of your weapons will be able to attack the ship. In this case you can see that I shot it down. So that is the airplane minigame here. So a lot of these elements have made their way into the XCOM Enemy Unknown game. I watched a couple of videos of the developers talking about how much they love this original game. They actually play the original game once every 2 weeks during development to remind themselves of their roots in gaming history. So with that said, we're going to call it good for this gameplay overview, and hopefully this should give us a good context for when we head into that blind Let's Play of XCOM Enemy Unknown. Alright, GosuDad signing off with Baby Caleb, and we will see you guys later.
Warning. Warning. UFO detected.